Good morning, Bay Hills. Grab the study guide that's in your program, and if you have a Bible, turn to 1 Samuel 17. 1 Samuel 17, pull that up on your phone and your Bibles. As you guys are doing that, real quick, a couple announcements. The main one, Easter coming up shortly. We still need some volunteers. So if you're available, if this is your home church, figure out a way, somehow to help with the Easter egg hunt or that weekend. It doesn't have to be on the day of, but head to the table in the back and see if you can figure out a way to help. Easter services, we're going to have 3 of them here and 2 at our Hilltop. And we want to encourage you to consider attending the Hilltop location and or the 8:30 service. Last week we ran out of chairs at the last service, literally, which is a wonderful problem. I think a lot of people remembered they were going to come to the first service and forgot and just started going back to the third service again. But if that's happening now, what's going to happen on Easter? So anyway, just think about that, help us out. And then the main announcement is the cards you got. We're giving, what do we give you? 4, 5, 6 cards. Those are not for you. Those are give your coworkers, friends, neighbors, classmates, whatever. Invite them to Easter. Don't be that person that the week after Easter you throw those cards away, right? If you have to, walk up down your street and put them, on the welcome mat by people's doors, right? I always get people wanting to cut my lawn or whatever. Just do that. Give them away and invite people to Easter. And then finally, small group signups are coming up. But we have the apologetics class that is going on and starting in a week, okay, just a week and a little bit. And that's why we're advertising it and giving you an opportunity. We had to cut off signups last time, so it's a great class. Problem of suffering, world religions, resurrection, historicity of the Bible, creation, evolution. It's super cool, so you want to check that out. And so anyway, that's it. We are jumping in and continuing our service this morning. And if you'll notice in your study guide in our series, the theme this morning is that your expectations matter. As it relates to your faith expectations matter. They influence the outcome. They influence your progress. They influence your spiritual journey. So as we're talking about this whole theme of faith, I also want to spend a week talking about our expectations. What do we expect out of life? What do we expect from God? So if you looking at the screen, I'm going to give you 4 verses to kind of get us started, to give you some perspective. So the first 2 relates to the conversation Jesus has with his disciples over a tree that's withering and so on and so forth. And he adds this, Mark chapter 9. Everything is possible for the one who believes. Now I want you to think about that first word for a moment. Everything is possible for the one who believes and or has faith, because that's our definition for faith. To trust, to believe, to obey God no matter what. Matthew 21, same conversation Jesus has. He says this. Jesus said, if you have faith and you don't doubt, you could say to this mountain, go throw yourself into the sea, and it will be done. That's a major statement if you think about it. And so what Jesus is proposing is, listen, what happens in your faith journey, what happens in your spiritual journey, to some extent is based upon, your very own faith. Do you believe that God's going to pull it off, yes or no? And your faith and expectation in and of itself sets you up as to whether it's going to happen or not. Mark chapter 11, whatever you ask in prayer, right? We're going to go to the prayer room afterwards. We're going to pray during the week. We have requests. Whatever you ask in prayer, watch. Believe that you've received it. In other words, your expectations matter, and it will be yours. Now, there's some other dynamics there about the will of God and everything, but he's establishing, listen, your faith expectations matter in your spiritual journey. And then kind of our anchor verse for this morning is Matthew chapter 9, verse 29. According to your faith, you're trusting God, you're obeying God. According to your faith, it will be done to you. This is what sometimes is called the law of expectations, which very basically says you're going to get out of life typically what you expect from life. Not always, but that's the law of expectations. Your expectations will influence your happiness. It'll influence your health, your emotions, your achievements, your career, your relationships. And yes, it will also influence your faith journey, what you expect from life. So we're going to talk about it this morning and why it matters. First thing we're going to jump into, you see it in your study guide, 2 approaches to faith. These are kind of obvious. We typically talk about it in people's personalities. I want to show you how it also impacts your faith. The pessimist and the optimist. So the pessimist, Job chapter 3, verse 24, everything I fear and dread comes true. Time out. Everything, really? Everything you fear, 100% of what, do you know people like this? They have this kind of pessimistic attitude about life. Everything that's a problem is going to happen to me. Now, in all fairness, we're picking this verse from Job. And if you know his story, it was kind of sucky what happened to him, right? So we're going to cut him a little bit of slack. But for the rest of us, not so much. Everything goes wrong for you? I don't think so. I don't think so. And then you have the optimist. The optimist. The optimist is the example is Paul in Philippians 1. Incredible book, incredible chapter on optimism from a faith perspective. Because of this, I rejoice. Well, what's the this? I mean, something must have really good must have happened to him. He must have won the lotto. You know, he's going on a cruise next week. He got a bonus at work. His kid got a full ride scholarship to college, university. Something good happened to him because he's excited. Well, what's the this? Well, when you read the chapter, let me tell you what the this is. Envious preachers, solitary confinement in prison, and ministry rivalry. And yet he says, because of this I rejoice. Yes, I will continue to rejoice. Paul, how can you possibly say this? Catch that last phrase. Because I live in eager expectation. My faith expectations are going to influence and to some extent have an impact on the outcome of what I'm doing. Not only in Paul's life, but in your life. I had a fun time this week studying pessimism, optimism from a psychological perspective. You know, I have a background in that in college. Signs that you may be a pessimist, just listen. You give up too quickly. You have very few, if any, super close friends. Because think about it. Most people don't like to hang out with pessimists. That's just the reality of it, right? People walk on eggshells around you. The problem is we don't know it if they're doing that. You are overly suspicious of people. You discredit success. So when something good happens to you, you call it luck. You discredit success. And probably one of the greatest signs you may be a pessimist is you expect and are even seemingly entertained by bad news. Do you meet people like that? You bump into them. Hey, did you hear about the earthquake in Ecuador this morning? No. Yes. Thousands of people died. Oh, no. Do you have people down there that you know? No, I just wanted you to know. Did you hear about the guy in Vallejo that got hit by a car, hit and run? He's in intensive care. No, I didn't. Do you know him? No, I just wanted you to know. Did you hear about the doctor in Florida? He's prescribing poison to his patients. Oh, my goodness. Do you have family in Florida? No, just want you to know. Why? Because some people seem to be entertained by bad news. I avoid those people. Just walk away from them. I can't handle it, right? Entertained by bad news. On the flip side, some of the benefits of being an optimist. You have more fulfilling relationships. I had all kinds of studies for this. I don't have time because this is not psychology class. This is Bible class. But it was very interesting. You have more fulfilling relationships, marriage, friends, and coworkers. You have greater career success, significantly less stress. You overcome failure quicker. You have better overall health and live an average of 10 years longer than the pessimist. And get this, your witness is enhanced when you're an optimist. I want you to think about it for a moment. If you're the person that is shuffling your feet through life and everything is negative in the world, why would your coworker, family member, and classmate be interested in your God? Does that make sense? I'm not saying that you can't admit and be open about problems. But if we're kind of like, oh, life sucks, why would they be interested in Jesus? Does that make sense? Now, let me give you, I don't want you to hear something that's not true. Let me show you a real quick graph between the optimist and the pessimist. 0 is a pessimist on a score of 1 to 100. 100, you're an optimist, right? You're an optimist. Well, how does this, is what I'm suggesting to you that you be a complete optimist? No, I'm not. You don't want to be there. When you do these little tests, here's what they suggest. Here's the ultimate goal. Let's put it on the screen. The ultimate goal is that you be between 70 and 80, closer to optimism. Does that make sense? You want to be a realistic optimist. If you're at 100 on the scale of 0 to 100, you're not being realistic about problems. Does that make sense? So you have to try to figure out where you're at. You could do these little tests. They go real quick online. But like I said, I'm not so interested in what psychology says. I'm interested in what Scripture says. So what I want to talk to you about this morning is 1 Samuel chapter 17. It's the story that all of us have heard before. If this is your first time in church ever, you've heard the story of David and Goliath. This little pipsqueak shepherd that goes up against a super soldier, and he wins. He happens to win. And so this morning, but one of the reasons he happens to win is his perspective. He's an optimist. He goes into the battle assuming he's going to win. And what I want to do is I want to spend some time talking to you this morning, first of all, about why you should expect the best, why you should be a faith optimist. So I'm going to have the verses up on the screen, but you could try and follow along with me. Here's the first thing I want to share with you. 1 Samuel 17, starting in verse 46. David said to the Philistine, to Goliath, "You come against me with sword and with spear and with javelin." In other words, you're a super soldier. But I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, who you've defied. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands. So they start smack-talking each other. I'll strike you down, and I'm going to cut your head off. This very day I will give your carcass to the Philistine army, to the birds and the wild animals, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. So what I want you to see from the very beginning is being a faith optimist is not you, it's not David standing in front of a Goliath problem saying, "I'm awesome, I'm super skilled, I'm super talented, I'm a great soldier, so I'm going to beat you, Goliath." That's not necessarily what's happening. His confidence isn't in himself, his confidence is in his God. That's what makes him a faith optimist. Not his own abilities, but God's power and strength. You see, when you are a faith optimist, it honors God. This is not about David getting a prize. This is about God being elevated in the eyes of the soldiers, both on the Philistine side and the Jewish side. The story goes on. Let's keep reading. Verse 49, reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it, he struck the Philistine in the forehead. The stone sank into his forehead, and he fell face down to the ground. The second reason you want to be a faith optimist, expect the best in life, is because it increases our ability. There's all these experts now called sports psychologists. Good coaches know that one of the ways you prepare your team is not just conditioning them, it's not just practicing with them, it's not just going over tactics with them, it's getting their mind ready. And if you go into the contest, the game, knowing, believing, I'm good, I can win, I don't care how good they are, your mind influences and impacts the outcome. Your sports life. It happens the same in your school life. Your school life. Your mind and your perspective influences as you go into a midterm exam. Now, watch. You can be an optimist. I'm going to get an A on this exam. But if you didn't study, it doesn't matter how optimistic you are. So don't hear me wrong. But if you've done some study and you go in optimistically, it's going to enhance your ability to get a better grade. It influences your sports life. It influences your career life. It influences your marriage life. And it influences your spiritual life. It influences your spiritual life. You are better as a follower of Jesus Christ if you are a faith optimist. There's one more thing. Let's keep reading. When the Philistines, verse 51, starting at the last part. When the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, they turned and they ran. The men of Israel and Judah surged forward with a shout, and they pursued the Philistines. So David started out, or the army started out, he's so big, you can't defeat him. And David no, he's so big, I can't miss him. And then when he actually kills him, right? For 30 days, the Jewish soldiers were afraid. They were scared. They were cowering. And watch what happens. With one stone, Goliath goes down, and all of the Philistine armies, they run. And the energy within the Jewish soldiers surges. It grows, right? You see, if you're a faith optimist, it's not just what it does to you, it's what it does to other people around you. Let's say you and I are on a plane. The plane crashes, goes down, but you and I survive. We end up on a deserted island like Castaway, right? We're on a deserted island. We're there for a couple months. We figure some things out. We make a couple huts. Well, basically, you make a couple huts, and I encourage you because I don't know what I'm doing, right? We come up with some spears to get food, and we're handling ourselves. We're surviving. There's no one coming to rescue us yet, but we're making it. And then one day you get a horrible pain in your side. And you're like, oh my goodness, what is it? And we come to the conclusion, it's your appendix. Your appendix is about ready to burst. And if it bursts, you're going to die. Now, two options. What would you like me to say to you at that point? I could say, option number one, hey, I just want you to know, Grey's Anatomy is my favorite TV show. I was a biology major in college and I did extra dissection. 3, my favorite channel is the Health Channel. And the whole month before we got on the plane, all they did is feature appendix surgeries. Did you know that the appendix surgery is the simplest, easiest surgery to perform? I watched dozens of them on the Health Channel for the month before we got on the plane. I think I can perform the surgery and save your life. Or option number 2, I think you're going to die. What would you prefer? Does that make sense? Again, my confidence doesn't give me the ability to automatically perform a successful appendectomy, but my attitude does influence you. Does that make sense? There's all kinds of reasons why being a faith optimist matters. In our case, what we especially want to focus on is it's going to affect your faith journey. What I want to spend the rest of our time doing, if you look on the back side of your study guide, is I want to talk to you about how to expect the best in life. How to become a faith optimist. Because if you're honest, let's say on a scale of 1 to 100, let's say you're 60 or lower, right? And I've just convinced you from a faith perspective that you need to get in the 70s, right? You don't necessarily need to be in the 90s, but you need to be in the 70s. How do I do that? We're going to stay in the story of David and Goliath, and what I want to do is I want to give you 5 action steps of how to become a faith optimist. Number 1 is I want to encourage you to start your day with God. Start your day with God. So this is the one section where we deviate from 1 Samuel 17, but we look at something else that David writes. And he writes in the Psalms, he says, "In the morning, O Lord, you hear my voice." Question, why and how? Why does God hear David in the morning? Because apparently the first thing he's doing when he wakes up in the morning is he gets his cup of coffee and he talks to God. It's called prayer. He has a little devotional time. He doesn't say that he has 3 hours of Bible study. He just says, I do my little daily bread. I do my 5-minute devotional. I spend a couple moments talking to you. In the morning, O Lord, you hear my voice. In the morning, I lay my requests before and I wait in expectation. That's a key word for us this morning. Did you know that we are told that whatever it is you do in the first 15 minutes of your day sets the tone for your rest of your day? Did you know that? Whatever it is you do. So think about what you typically do right now. See, typically, what do we do? Well, we get our cup of coffee, and we open our laptop and we look at news. Have you noticed 90% of news is negative? Or we turn on the TV and watch Bad Morning America, right? Or we get in our car, start communing, and we turn on talk radio because it's so encouraging and uplifting and God-inspiring. It's no wonder you got a bad attitude. Just think about the first 15 minutes of your day. And what I'd like to suggest to you is maybe you consider doing something a little different and changing your habits. Your habits. Psalm 118:24. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice, which is a different way of saying, let's expect the best in today and be glad in it. Some of us wake up and say, "Good morning, Lord." And others of us wake up and go, "Good Lord, it's morning." How many of you would admit, I wake up a little bit grouchy? And some of you would admit, I let grouchy sleep in the morning, let him get as much of sleep as he can. Guys, whether you're a faith optimist or not, part of it is just the first 15 minutes of your day. What are you doing? Is it health, positive, inspiring? What are you doing? And maybe consider changing it a little bit, right? Second of all is resist the attitude of fear. Resist the attitude of fear. Verses 3 through 11, 1 Samuel 17. Here's where we're going to stay in it the rest of the time. The Philistines occupied one hill and the Israelites another hill. I was actually able to go to Israel when I was in college. We went to this location where the two hills, where archaeologists and theologians believe the Jewish army was and David, and then you've got the ravine, and the Philistine army was on the other side. Philistines occupied one hill, the Israelites another. A champion named Goliath. So they literally kind of had contests, right? They kind of had like the gladiators, and he was the champion of champions. There was a champion called Goliath who was from Gath. He came out of the Philistine camp. His height was 9 feet 6 inches minimum. If I've added that for you, if you're looking at some of your versions, it gives you the measurement in cubits. But it was, so he's a big boy. Goliath stood, he shouted to the ranks of Israel, "This day I defy the armies of Israel. Give me one man and let us fight." One man. On hearing the Philistine words, Saul and all the Israelites were dismayed and they were terrified. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about it because we're going to talk about it in a couple weeks. You don't want to miss it. For the moment, let me just say this to you and listen to me very, very carefully. Fear, worry, and anxiety will shipwreck your faith. Fear, worry, and anxiety will shipwreck your faith. Nothing is more destructive to your spiritual journey and to your faith journey other than sin than fear, worry, and anxiety. Nothing. Nothing. It's a major problem. And by the way, ignoring it doesn't make it go away. Can I give you one little suggestion, just a little suggestion on how to fight it? Goliath says to them, remember, he's standing at the ravine, and he shouts out to them, "Give me one man and we'll do battle." Why just one? You want to know what's going on here? They don't want the Philistine army to fight the Jewish army. They don't want to do that because then there's losses. Thousands of people die on both sides. They don't want to do that. Here's what we're going to do. It was called representative warfare. We'll pick one guy. You pick one guy and we'll do battle. And if I win for my team. And if you win for your team. Does that make sense? But that saves and keeps thousands of people dying on each side. Give me one guy and let's go. One guy. And you win for your team. I win for my team. You want to know that that's exactly what Jesus did for you on the cross? He stood with Satan and he had a little conversation. He said, "You want a piece of this? Okay. Representative warfare. If I win for all my people. I win for everyone. They all get forgiveness of sin. They all get victory in Jesus if and when they want it. So part of how to fight fear, you best get with Jesus quick. Okay, but now listen. You can't ignore it. Fear, just like Goliath, and when you read this story, he keeps coming up day after day after 40 days. And there is actually one indication. When you read the Hebrew in the NASB, it says that he starts here and he's yelling and he's taunting. You know what happens day after day? He starts going down the ravine and at one point in time starts going up their hill. If you don't do something about your fear, anxiety, and worry, it will start taking ground that you used to own. You best figure it out. You have got to resist, and let me just say this, kill it. Because your fear is like Goliath. You don't accept it. You got to figure out a way to kill it. Does that make sense? We're going to spend a lot more time talking about this in a couple weeks. Number 3, you got to eliminate negative words from your vocabulary. 1 Samuel 17, verse 26, David asked, "What will be done for the man who kills the Philistine?" Why is he asking? This is interesting. And that he should defy the armies of the living God. When Eliab, David's older brother, because David goes to the battlefront initially to give him some sandwiches and some cheese to see his brothers who are fighting, or at least in the Jewish army. When Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speak with the men, his anger burned against him, and he asked, "Why have you come down here? With whom did you leave those few little sheep in the wilderness? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down here only to watch, to enjoy the battle. That's all you came. Now, I want you to notice David's positive words, David's hopeful words. And I highlighted it in the first slide. Why did he ask what the reward was? He's asking the soldiers, who is that guy? His name is Goliath. Well, if someone defeats him, what do they get in return? What's the reward? Why is he asking? Because he believes that he's going to win. That's why he's asking. What do you get out of the deal? So you got to get some reward and he does. He gets a huge reward, right? Huge monetary reward, and gets to marry the king's daughter. So he becomes part of royalty just by defeating him. On the flip side, did you notice Eliab's negative words? You see them there highlighted on the screen. They're negative, they're pessimistic, they're hurtful, they're aggressive. They're negative. I read this one study by a doctor called Dr. Seligman. This is what he says. How you talk and explain the small good things in your life. So just how you talk about the small good things in your life will either increase your personal success or hinder your progress. You see, when something good happens in life, to the optimist, they take credit for it. Right? You get a promotion at work? Yeah, I deserved it. I'm a hard worker. I'm much better than Sally or Joe. That's why they gave me the promotion. That's what the optimist does. But when something good happens to the pessimist, they chalk it up to coincidence, and that impacts future results. Isn't that interesting? Just how you talk about life. Just how you talk about life. Just how you talk about your life. James chapter 3, he spends almost an entire chapter talking about you best watch your words. Do you realize how destructive your words can be in your very own life? How you talk about yourself. You say things about yourself you would never let someone else say up to you. Why? Why do you do that? Words are powerful. If you have kids, this has happened. Have you ever caught your kid talking themselves into being sick so they don't have to go to school? Have you ever caught them doing that? Oh, Dad, I think I feel a migraine coming on. No, you're fine. Oh, no, it's my stomach. It's my stomach that's... No, you're fine. Dad, I think I'm going to throw up. No, you're not. You're just trying to get out of the exam. And they throw up. They talk themselves right into it, right? I did that a couple days trying to get out of work at the office, right? Brigitte, I'm not coming in, right? You could talk yourself into anything. Question, what are you talking yourself into or out of? Your words matter. They mattered in this situation. David's words, positive, hopeful, faith-inspiring. Eliab's words, negative, aggressive, loss of hope. Number 4, exercise and practice your faith. Honestly, that's what our growth track is all about. If you're new to Bay Hills or you've never been here, that starts next week. We have it every month. Growth track, how to get you going, how to grow, that's what this is how to exercise and practice your faith. And what we see in verses 33 to 36 is David asking for permission to fight Goliath. And so he asked for permission, and then we read, King Saul replied, You're not able to go out to the Philistine and fight him. You're just a young man. You're just 15 years old, 16. He's been a warrior from his youth, right? Instead of doing Little League, he did judo classes or whatever he did, right? He's been practicing for years. But David said to Saul, watch, your servant has been keeping my father's sheep. So far doesn't inspire much confidence, does it? I want to fight Goliath. Why? Well, I'm a shepherd. But then he goes on, when a lion or a bear came and carried off the sheep from the flock. Think about if we were shepherd. We were shepherd and we have our flock, and oh my goodness, a mountain lion took one of the sheep. There he goes. He's taken one of my. Wouldn't it just be? Wouldn't we? Well, maybe not you. I would go. That's a bummer. That's not what he does. That's not what he does. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it. I struck it, rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by its hair. I struck it and I killed it. Your servant has killed both lion and bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be just like one of them because he's defied the armies of the living God. Here's what you need to understand. Giant killing faith, Goliath killing faith starts when you practice on bears and lions. Right now, some of us do not have a Goliath-sized problem in our life. But you know what you do have? You got a lion-sized problem. You got a bear-sized problem. And how you handle your lions and your bears will influence and impact when you face off with giant and a Goliath, what you do then. I'm starting to think, and you see, giant killing faith optimism doesn't just descend from the sky. It doesn't happen as you fill in the blanks on Sunday morning. You know when it happens? It happens when no one's watching. It happens in the small decisions in life, not the Goliath decision, because by then it's too late. It happens when no one's watching, like David out in the middle of nowhere by himself watching his sheep. He sees the lion take the sheep. Oh my goodness, what should I do? And he hears God's small voice whisper to him, go get him. But I don't know if go get him, get up, you can win, you can do this. How do you think David felt the first time he defeated a lion? Pretty good, pretty adrenaline rush. How about when he defeated the bear? And he starts getting confidence. I can do this, right? I may not be able to throw a spear, but I'm really good with a slingshot. So when he faces off with a much bigger problem, his confidence is there. So what I'm asking you is right now in your small little problems, whatever they are, how you respond to your small problems is going to influence you when you face off to Goliath. So be very smart and build your faith into your small problems now, knowing it's going to help you in the future. Last thing, I got to wrap this up. My timer isn't working, so I don't know if I'm over or under, but the Spirit is moving, so let's just keep going, right? Verses 43 to 45. Goliath cursed David by his gods. Remember, he's yelling across the ravine, smack talking him, right? Goliath cursed David by his gods, and he said, come here. I'm going to give your flesh to the wild animals. And David responded. Again, remember when he responds, he's not whispering. He's not talking. He's yelling. It's the distance between here, ravine, and McDonald's is where Goliath is. That was the distance back then. Now, it's kind of a natural amphitheater, so your voice projects and everything like that. But as David is yelling to Goliath, who's way over there, everyone can hear him on both sides. I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. And what I want to help you understand is that in this battle, in this contest, Saul and the Jewish army has one perspective, and David has a completely different perspective. Let me real quickly give you a couple items with perspective, just images, kind of fun. Let's put the first one up there. What do you see? Yell it out. You see the frog, but if you switch it a little bit, let's show them. You see the horse. Do you see it? It takes a lot of skill as an artist to do that, right? Let me show you the next image. The next image is one of the famous images. How many of you see the old lady? Oh, by the way, the guy that drew this, he didn't call it the young lady, old lady. He called it the young lady and mother-in-law. I kid you not. That's what it's called. Do you guys see the old lady? How many of you see the young lady? See the young lady? Okay, let me show you. Let's put it up there. I'm going to give you a moment to see. The mouth is different than the neck, the ear, the eyes. You guys see it now? The middle one can help you see it. You guys see it? Some of you, this is all you're going to remember. That was cool in church today when he showed us the pictures, right? This next one is probably one of the best ones. Let me show you. Can you guys see the elephant? That's easy. Can you see the other image by the hump, the eye, and the ear? Can you see it? I'm not going to tell you what it is. Can you see it? If you can't, sometimes it's better to squint your eyes. Squint your eyes so you can see. Can you see it? Actually, there's nothing there. It's just an elephant. Squint. I think it's a parakeet. No, it's not. It's just an elephant. Oh, that was the best part. Okay. Okay, next one. This is. Have you seen this one? The duck and the rabbit. Can you guys see the duck, rabbit? Yeah, put it up there. This is the famous one, right? It depends on which direction you're looking at, right? It's just different perspectives, right? Same image, different angles, what you're seeing, what you're looking for, perspective. Let me show you perspective. This is what the Jews and Saul saw. They saw a little pipsqueak shepherd boy with a Shaquille O'Neal size of a man, professional super soldier. And when you look at life from this perspective, you're going to be intimidated, and you're going to be afraid, and you're going to feel like cowering. But what's fascinating about this story as you read it is that David's perspective was completely different. This was his perspective. Let me show you. I've told you before, one of the things I like to do when I'm doing studies, I just Google image search because we're so visual. And this image spoke to me because David, and look at in that second picture, he's standing tall. He's standing confident. Goliath is still huge, but David has a different perspective. He understands he is not coming after Goliath because he's a super soldier. He's coming after Goliath because I have a super God. And he stands before me. And because Goliath can't see it, that's why he's so cocky, but I'm taking him down. I started by giving you one of these verses. I want to end by giving you the context. Let's put it up on the screen. Jesus asked the boy's father. It's the story of a man who comes and his kid is sick and he wants Jesus to heal. Jesus asked the boy's father, how long has he been like this? From childhood, take pity on us. Help us. Jesus answered, everything is possible for the one who believes. That's the quote I gave you. But then I didn't give you this. Watch. Immediately the boy's father exclaimed, I do believe. Jesus, help me. Help me overcome my belief. Help me grow in my faith. Help me become a faith optimist. I'm glad you asked. There's 5 ways you do it. Number 1, make sure and think about spending time with God at the beginning of your day. Number 2, fight against fear. Number 3, check your words. Your very own words are defeating yourself. 4, practice your faith. Practice them on lions and bears before you get to the Goliath. And finally, change your battle perspective. Put on a brand new pair of lenses and remind you who stands behind you and before you. Let's pray.